Curt Young, what's up, bro?
Hello.
So you are the man in these parts when it comes to putting ink on some skin. You know what I mean?
The people I tattoo would say that. That's for sure.
You know, it's fortunate that I actually don't have any of your work on me, but over the years, you know, being in the scene, and then people always coming up to me like, I've heard your name a lot, but we've never actually got to sit down and connect.
Right.
And so when I met you in passing, you know, probably a year or so ago, I was like, hey man, we need to do this thing. We need to talk about some stuff.
For sure.
And your industry is interesting because it's progressively. How long have you been doing it?
Probably 13 years.
Okay.
I started in, I think, around 07, and then I had off and on for a good 5 or 6 years. I dabbled in it. The first year, I probably only tattooed a month cumulatively. So I didn't really tattoo consistently until like the 5th year.
Okay.
And I worked a full-time job up until I had my own studio.
Well, what did you do before you got into tattoo?
Industrial maintenance. I worked.
How the hell does that? How does that transfer?
Well, I graduated high school in Plano, Texas.
Okay.
And I stayed there. My parents came back, and I was going to be, I don't know. I worked at restaurants and rollerbladed. That was my thing.
Rollerbladed?
Yeah, it's horrible.
Shit,
we're not going to bring that up
Oh,
again.
yeah, we got to now.
That's the last time I'm ever going to say that. And so I broke my leg rollerblading. I guess I did have to bring it up again. And I had to move back here. And my dad worked at oil packaging plants his whole life. And he was opening one up. And I was like, well, I got a boot on. I can't really do anything else. So I started helping him build one from the ground up. And they just noticed I was able to fix everything. I could pipe fit and stuff like that. So I got into that industry, and I did that for like 9 years. I did that. I worked at Solo. I worked at Music Mountain. I worked at a couple places.
Okay. And what made you get out of that?
This. Tattooing.
You just found it and said, I'm going to
roll
I
was getting tattooed. I was getting a horrible tattoo covered up on this arm right here. And the guy that was, I instinctively cover it.
I'm the same way. I'm going to bring him.
And so I was getting tattooed, and the guy that I was getting tattooed by was supposedly like, you know, the guy.
Yeah.
He's the guy you want to go to.
Yeah.
And I go into the shop, and it is, I mean, it looked like a tattoo shop. Supposed to. It was loud, it was ridiculous, and it was obnoxious, but it was also like, it was not clean. I'm not naming names. I'm not going to say where I went, but I mean, I was there for maybe 8 months, 9 months, but I was getting tattooed, and he'd do all these lines on me, and I'm like, all right, okay. You know, I got home and I looked at it, and I was like, this really doesn't look good. I was like, man, I went to him next time, and he was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to shade it all up. And I'm like, well, okay, maybe the shading is going to make it look really good. And it did not make it look really good. It definitely just kept going in a negative direction. So I was like, well, maybe I can get something out of this deal. And I looked, dude, and I mean, he was had his own issues and all this stuff, but still had a studio and had his own shop, made his own hours. And I'm like, if this dude can do it, like, I can totally do it. Because I drew in high school. That's it. I was not an artist. I was not.
What did you draw in high school?
Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtles.
Yeah,
bro.
Yeah.
So what years were they? Were you in high school?
I graduated in 97.
97. Okay, so you just randomly Ninja Turtles.
Ninja Turtles was the only thing I really cared to draw.
Why is that though?
Middle school.
Why is that? Just
because
it
was cool.
Is that back when the real
that's when they
live action movie?
Yeah, that was just
the best one.
It
right?
really was. It was
Dude,
the
like
only
all these
ones.
ones they keep fucking making. Like they just released
them.
a
They
trailer.
don't even look right.
Dude, they just released a trailer for another one, and it looks cool and it's all artistic and shit, but it's not. It's not real life. Like it's not real life. Like the original ones were and they were ahead of their fucking time.
And
dude.
really, I guess we would probably watch it now and be like,
probably
this is
horrible,
the most terrible thing I've ever seen.
I need to go back and watch it.
Right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'd watch it and think it's still amazing.
Dude, the second one, the one with Vanilla Ice, was the shit.
Right.
The second one.
That's my whole point. Like that was when I came up. I say I was probably in middle school. I think.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I wanted to draw the Ninja Turtles, and I found like the comic version of the Ninja Turtles, you know, and I try to like emulate that and do that. And that was the first thing I got. I was like good at drawing. And I never drew up until I got into like high school, and that high school I went to was a really good high school in Plano. And they had like an amazing art program. Well, I was in ISS. I stayed in trouble. So it actually ended up to my benefit. So I was in ISS and I was doing an art project in ISS. And so I had all the time in the world. So I just like killed it. I went nuts on this art project. And the art teacher's like, you got to be in AP art. Like, you need to be doing this. And she did, and put me in AP art. And I started, doing pretty decent in that. And then come graduation, they actually made portfolios for us and sent them off to like art colleges.
Nice.
And right. And so she sends it off to a couple of art colleges, and Kansas City Art Institute, which is, in hindsight, it's a really good college for art. It's like great. But to show that I was just good at art, really, that's pretty much what I was good at. I was like, I'm not going to Kansas. I want to go to Kansas courses in Missouri. Like,
I mean? I want to go to
Kansas. I didn't do well in geography. I did well at art. And so I was like, I don't want to go to Kansas. What's in Kansas? Nothing. Just fields. So I'm not going. And so I didn't even research and look into it. It wasn't like a full ride or anything, but it was like, it was enough. I should have probably checked it out. And so I just went and waited tables and did all that. But that was the extent of my art.
Okay.
I was not an artist. I'm not like drawing every day.
Right.
I didn't have I did draw, I guess, in high school, but it wasn't like I was drawing on all my folders and shit. I was just occasionally would draw an art, and I did well at it.
Yeah.
So back to this guy tattooing, and this is 10 years later, roughly, for me, from high school, and I'm like, this dude has got a whole shop, and he obviously ain't got his shit together.
Yeah.
But he can have a shop.
Right.
So
he's still
I'm gonna do it,
yeah.
And I asked him, I said, hey man, what would it take for me to apprentice? And he's like, well, buy me these 2 machines. I'm like, all right, I got you, dude. I was working 12-hour shifts 7 days a week, dude.
Yeah,
I got
the
that.
money, yeah.
Yeah. And so I bought the 2 machines and apprenticed for like 6 months. And I feel like he felt like I was kind of coming up a little quick. It was like I started out on my legs, and I started like tattooing my legs, and they were pretty decent. They weren't bad. I'm still, to this day, I can look at them and think like, well, I didn't do a bad job.
Yeah.
It's not something that I'm like completely ashamed of.
Right.
And so the friends and stuff that I had coming in, I was doing okay work too. And it was already up to a standard that they were at there. So I felt like he was like trying to slow me down. So I was like, I'm out, and I told him, I was like, well, I've got another job offer. I got to go to this Coca-Cola or something. I didn't have a job offer. I was just leaving. So I left that place, and I ended up stumbling into somebody in front of Modern Primitives, and I worked there. I don't know if you remember that place off of Kings.
Yeah.
It was there for quite a while.
Yeah.
And, it's in the Taekwondo place.
Was that tied into the smoke shop too?
Yes,
yeah,
it was.
Yeah.
It was a smoke shop. It had all sorts of crap up front. And the guy was like, look, I don't have anybody working Sundays. You can work Sundays. I want to be open on Sundays. I'm going to have a front girl, and you can work Sundays. So I was just a no-name, nobody, working on 1 day a week that nobody else was working.
Yeah.
And I did that for like 6 months. And then he sold that place, or gave that place to the artists there. And they were all like, I don't know who the hell you are, man. We're not open on Sundays anymore, though, so you ain't got a job.
Yeah.
And so, like, they just kind of, eliminated my job. And I went another, like, almost a year almost, I think, without tattooing at all. So that's what I say, like, the whole first half of my tattoo career, or first, like, 4 years, was, like, touch and go.
Yeah.
Hardly doing it all. When people don't know you, when artists don't know you, they're not real apt to hire you.
Yeah.
And so I had to kind of like, I worked at a place called Scaredy Tats on Uri.
Yeah.
Yep. And I worked there for like a good solid year, and kind of built up a little bit of a name. Like, that's when I started, like, people started thinking like, oh man, this guy does, pretty good work. And it was very like mediocre. It was not great. But I built up enough of a name that whenever I had it out with the guy there, the owner there was a whole other podcast, honestly. But he was just not trustworthy. And I was given everything I had to this, bringing in machines I made, because I also did that before I tattooed. I made the tattoo machines before I knew how to tattoo.
Okay.
And because that was the easiest thing. It's like a little doorbell. The old ones, they're literally like a little doorbell. Yeah. So like I was working in maintenance. I worked at graveyard, so I had machine shop and all this other stuff. I'm like, I'll just build tattoo machines, and so I did that for the first probably 6 months while I was apprenticing. I started figuring out how to build them, and that got me into knowing different artists.
Okay,
because I do know not all the artists around, but I know a lot of them. And I have a fairly decent rapport because I think it's ridiculous when we like compete.
Well, I was about to get to that.
Yeah.
All right, so apparently, like it's pretty obvious that I have a shitload of hours on me. Okay,
right.
But I've been in the tattoo world since I was 18. I guess since I was old enough to get one.
Yeah.
And it's very, very funny to me how cutthroat your industry is. How everybody talks shit about everybody.
Yep.
I say everybody loosely because I don't know everyone, know. But I'm just saying, as you cross people's path, it's always like, yeah, well, so and so's doing this, so and so's doing that. But the funniest thing to me ever is the people. It's very, very interesting how your market works because everyone in the world has the best tattoo artist ever, right?
Oh, yeah.
when you meet anyone,
yep.
They're like,
and they want to talk trash about all the other artists.
Have like,
apparently all other artists are terrible, and your artist, my artist, is the best, hands down.
Why is it? That's like the only industry that's like that, though. It's so hilarious to me.
There's a whole culture, I think, tied up in tattoo artists in general. Just the artists themselves. Yeah. There's this whole they are a subculture.
Yeah, and
they love to bicker amongst themselves, or not even bicker, really just be above
it's an
the
ego.
other.
It's an ego thing.
It's an ego thing. But you do have a lot of, and I think it's born from the clients. Okay?
It's got to be, right?
No, it's born from the clients. So the clients build in our head so far beyond the clouds that it is comical.
Yeah.
And so you have all these artists that all their clients are like, you're the best, dude. You know, you got the coolest tattoos. You do the best work out of the whole city. They start believing it.
Yeah.
And so they start thinking like, well, I'm the best. I mean, obviously I'm the best. You know, everybody tells me that. And so when you get artists together, they're super critical.
Yeah.
And they're just like, you're trash. You suck. It's horrible. And I think that it's starting to shift, though. I mean, with social media, it has really flipped the whole thing on its head. And now, it's funny. So local artists started out like they would just fight and back and forth. Well, man, I'm sorry. There's plenty of people on this planet. I cannot tattoo the planet, right? And the thought that I should try to get clients away from you or have more clients than you is preposterous. I'm trying to narrow down my clients to a very select few because that focuses on the art. That gets me to focus on exactly what I'm doing versus like trying to tattoo the world. Yeah. And there are different types of tattoo artists. You know, there's flash artists. There's artists that are just straight street.
All right, so you got to explain all these things for people that don't know.
Okay.
So put it into context what the flash is. Yeah, just put it.
Okay, so the flash art is probably the best one to talk about first because they literally have been around since tattooing began in America.
Okay.
Flash began from the military.
Yeah.
Like
right.
Navy and so they would draw up things that would be appealing to military, but military, they get on leave or something. They've only got so much time, so they had to do like pieces that they could just bang them out. And so flash became something that they would keep on the wall, and you could just point to it and be like, yeah, I want that. I want to get that pin up, and I want to get that, flag with the eagle. And flash, the culture of flash tattooing has went up and down. In the 90s, it was horrible.
Yeah.
It was terrible because there was so much trash flash, just random flash that people had drawn that had no business on the wall. It was just trash. It really was. And there came companies that would just produce flash, right? And they had like I guess they would commission artists. I don't know, but they were just not that good. They would just pound out a bunch of stuff and sell it. You'd buy it for $40, $70 a sheet, and then you'd put it up in your shop. And you're like, I got all this Cherry Creek flash.
Yeah.
I got all that. You know, you'd have this different brands of flash that you'd have, and the better the flash you had, the better you were producing. And so that the 90s peaked that, and then it kind of just fell off because people started wanting custom tattoos.
That happened. I feel like that started happening in the early 2000s.
Early 2000s.
Because I was, not to mean to cut you off, but just I don't want to forget about talking about this. Like when I first started getting into the tattoo space, as far as like receiving tattoos,
right?
You would walk into a shop and you would pick a flash, and you're 18, whatever, know, or get someone, someone to go in there with you, go younger, whatever, say this is what I want. And then as I progressed into it, we completely moved to custom. And that was probably like mid 2000s.
And you feel like you graduated to that.
Right, yeah.
So, and now flash tattoo shops, they've gone to exclusive older vintage flash.
Okay.
And there's more of a, they hold a certain reverence to the flash they have.
Does someone do any of them do like, okay, so we have X amount of pieces, but we're only doing one on each person? I feel like someone do that. They should do that.
Some do that and some don't. So when it comes to flash, typically you'll do that thing 20 times. If it comes in, you're going to do it.
Right.
If they want
you're not going to turn the money down.
Yeah, you're going to do it. Some artists like to retire certain pieces. When they draw their own flash, a lot of times they'll retire it.
Okay.
A lot of times they'll draw that and it'll be a one-off.
Okay.
And a one-off is just, that's it. It's one time. They're going to do that piece. Now, if it's Sailor Jerry, they might have done that exact Sailor Jerry tattoo 25 times.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because people collect that and they want that because the nostalgia kind of held up with it too.
Gotcha.
And I think that I hated Flash for a long time. I hated Flash art. I hated tattooing Flash. I just felt like it was just sticker pasting it on somebody and there was no creativity to it. And then as I got older in the industry and as I started to respect certain Flash and stuff like that, I absolutely would enjoy doing certain stuff.
Gotcha.
It is pleasurable to tattoo certain designs that have been around for 100 years.
Right.
That's pretty cool.
I didn't know the culture. I didn't know what the culture was around that. I had no idea. I just thought just random pieces that were thrown up on a wall. But that makes sense if there was a vintage artist that created this piece.
Oh, yeah. Some of the original sheets can go for hundreds and hundreds of dollars, just if not thousands, if it really does, date back to this is officially hand done by Sailor Jerry or whoever. I throw that around because most people know who that is. Right. But those are really like coveted flash sheets for most artists that do it. And there's a couple of shops in town that's what they do. And they're actually really good at doing that. And they enjoy doing that. I think you're right about the custom stuff. It started the early 2000s. Yeah. People started. That's when. So I started in 2007, and it was right when like custom was blowing up.
Right when Tribal came out, bro.
Yeah. It was right after Tribal.
I covered myself.
I got Tribal. I got my first piece was Tribal that I drew myself. And I drew it and I took it in there, and the guy he literally put what I did, all crooked and shit, in the machine, put it in a thermofax and just stuck it on me. And so I have a crooked piece of Tribal. That's why I got it covered. And I got it attempted to be covered. Well, don't
they say that about because so both of these pieces are cover ups. Mm-hmm. Like, and I feel like they say it's like there's your first tattoo and there's your cover up.
Yeah,
I feel like there's two.
That's very true.
Because I had a Tribal band, of course, and like I got in like 2006 or something.
Yep.
And it was like right here, and then oddly enough, I got it at a flash shop, and I got it done. I thought it was cool, but then I was like, oh, that's not cool enough. So then I went on this side and started a Tribal piece where I went.
Well, now this is Dust Till Dawn Tribal. What you got there,
right? But I started just one little piece.
Okay,
like I was trying to do like some UFC shit because I was in MMA and I started fighting a little bit. Yeah. And so I just want to do one piece. Well, the artist that did it, I don't even remember the guy's name. I'll tell you the studio off camera, but it's probably I don't think it's no longer
probably not
in business anyways.
Yeah.
But the dude was so barred out, it took him 5 hours to do this one piece. This piece right here.
Yeah.
Took 5 hours.
Yeah.
I thought, and I didn't know any better because I'd only had this one little thing done.
Uh-uh.
So I thought that was the process.
Yeah.
Kept taking breaks and shit, and I was like, "What the fuck?" And 5 hours later, it's done, and we go back, and this is all dug out with scar tissue.
I can tell it's scarred
up. We took it, and I was like, "Look, man, I just want to take the attention off this shitty piece and turn it into something."
Right.
And so that's what we did.
Do the arm.
And then after we did
and
that,
then the arm wasn't enough, so you had to fill it in with red.
Yeah, exactly.
I know the whole process.
And then I was like, well, then now I got this shitty travel band over here. Let's turn this into something else. But yeah, dude, it's so funny how that whole thing works. But I don't mean to steer the combo away. So you have Flash, and then what's the next?
So Flash, and then I guess you would go from Flash. Then came Freehand. Freehand was that's a whole almost goes into the Chicano culture, and like freehand is we had the freehand king around here. You know, we have people that do that. As far as I'm concerned, I think that freehand it's a little too loose because you can never ever achieve the precision if you draw it.
And you need to highlight that because some people say freehand, but it's really not.
No, hardly anybody does freehand, right?
But people will say that.
Yeah, so let's just take a for instance of what capabilities I would have. If I were to take a photo, right, and I can take a mag, which is a shader, and I can start just building up and brushing out and slowly build it up, and I can tattoo you with absolutely nothing. Not even, I would use a line for a reference where the eyes would go or something. I could do it, but it will not look as good as if I make a stencil, as if I make a guideline, a map for me to look at and actually go off.
Why do you think people, like, is it just to say?
It's the
it's got to be. It's like, you're right.
It's the bravado.
Yeah, it's my artist doesn't look at anything.
Now then you go the other step with freehand, which is with the next step, which is drawn on. I take Sharpies and I draw the stuff all over you.
Right.
And it's a little more refined and it's a little more flowy, but also there's
that's how most of this has been done.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah.
Tribal is actually done best freehand.
Okay.
You absolutely should get somebody that does freehand tribal.
Gotcha.
Tribal laid on you is just I just think that it's pretty generic.
Yeah.
Like you should absolutely get somebody that can draw it on you because at least it flows with your body. It looks like that sits on your arm the way it should.
Everyone's shape's different, right? So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. I can lay stencils to make it fit on your body, but for the most part, tribal needs to be drawn on.
Yeah.
I need to follow those lines of your arm, and that's also considered freehand.
Okay.
And then you've got people that'll put a stencil on you, and they do a couple little scribbles around it. Oh, I freehanded that. And it's like, well, you didn't really freehand it. Like you just added some stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I do that all the time.
Okay.
I don't call myself a freehand artist, and I could freehand, but it just seems to take away from what I am capable of with a stencil.
Yeah.
And then you've got realism, and you've got color realism. Those are two totally different animals. Like color realism is so exclusive to the people that actually can achieve it and do it well that I would venture to say, I don't know, there's not some real statistics, don't quote me on it, but probably 5% of tattoo artists that do color realism are very successful at it. Like do a phenomenal job with it.
And what does that consist of?
Color realism makes it exactly as it sounds. It's just a realistic color photo on somebody.
Okay.
It's very difficult to achieve across the board. Now, I could be really good at color realism, let's say flowers.
Yeah, okay.
So maybe that's all you do.
Yeah.
And that's where I say the 5% is the ones that can actually just do it with anything. Now, there's a lot of people that do like roses and flowers, and they do them color realistic, and they focus on that only, and that's all they do, and they actually can hone that in because they're focusing so hard on one specific subject matter. So they only have to stay within certain parameters,
right?
You know,
so they can just fine tune their craft.
Yeah,
because I feel like over the years being involved in this in the past almost 20 years of this culture. And I say that loosely because I'm just sitting in a chair, right?
Right.
But just being in the same, demographics that have a lot, and all that, and seeing different artists and different pieces of work, it's funny how it's really, I've seen it transform, and just like you said, social media, but I don't think it's so much social media. It's just so much attention to different things across the world is now accessible.
Yeah.
And then it gives you more, it opens your mind up to do different things.
Right,
and that just happens
and
to
we could put that on the internet. You know what I mean? You just say the internet, period.
Right, the internet.
Yeah.
And so it's like you look at these things, and it's like everyone has, even if someone is a Flash artist, they still have a style.
Yep.
Like I feel like if I look at something and I know everyone's art enough, I can look at stuff you've done and say, that's Curt Young. He did that shit.
Usually, you can pick out artists. Sometimes it's difficult with the Flash artists.
Right.
You know, but not always.
Right.
You know, they take certain liberties or they do certain things that other Flash artists don't do.
Yeah.
You know, this guy may leave a certain amount of skin all the time. You know, and you're like,
yeah, I know that so and so did that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or I know the scales off there. It must have been so and so. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But,
or this dude put 1,000 scales in it, like he should have never done. Like it's obviously this guy.
Yeah.
And so there are telltale signs to artists.
But I think that's awesome. I think that you could take the same piece, and like I could take someone and sit them two arms, sit down and say, you do this, and another artist do this, and they're going to look entirely different.
Yeah.
When it comes to like perspective.
Yeah. Yeah,
and
that brings me kind of to what I do. Mm-hmm. I embraced that, and I tried to do all of it.
Right.
Which was I need more caffeine. which was it's mixed style. It's become a newer style, right? Because you got new school. I left that out.
Well, yeah. And what street? You mentioned street too.
Oh, yeah. So street is definitely gray shade. Typically gray shade.
Is it more like more like
it's
like letters?
It's the
and stuff,
subject matter. Okay. Yes, it's definitely script. Script is always in street, and it's usually it's going to have, I don't know. I'd say like 2 or 3 different ideas put together, but it's always going to have similarities. It's going to have a dove. It's going to have clouds.
Gotcha.
It's going to have maybe a female figure in there with a bandana on or something like. It's. Is
that more linked to like prison tats?
Yeah, okay. Absolutely. That's why I say it's called street, because I mean, prison tattoos are a totally different thing, but street came from that. That's where street gets its fashion. Just as like fashion comes from that, that also comes from that.
Okay.
So you have people that come out and they get out and they have all this work on them and it looks a certain way. Well, they go to a tattoo shop and they're just like, I want to fill in this and I want to do this. Well, they have to adapt and kind of like make this better. So they ended up doing a different version of it, but better.
Got you.
And that's kind of where I think most of that came from. If you've got Flash from military, street came from prison. Gotcha. And not specifically, but it definitely has links. They are connected. And so that's how I would say is the difference in street and Flash. And then new school just came from people, I guess, tired of traditional Flash. Okay. And they wanted this cartoon, stretchy. They wanted to like pull it out and like draw, and they wanted to be very illustrative. Yeah. And it was what was considered at the time very artistic version of tattooing. They took all these liberties. Flash tattooing has rules, lots of strict rules. There's a rule of 3. You have to have a third black, a third skin, and I'm drawing a blank on the other, but it's literally you have to have a certain line weight throughout the whole thing. The line has to be the same thickness.
Why is that?
It's just a rule. It's just a rule for.
It's like an unwritten rule. Is this? Like,
yeah, absolutely. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, it's so if you don't follow it, it's not considered traditional.
Right. Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
You're not traditional. You're neo-traditional, which is just new traditional. Right.
And are these all like subcultures created within the space?
Yeah, absolutely.
That weren't
so you have
there.
all these artists. Then you have the neo-traditional artists. Then you have the realism artists. And then you have so the neo-traditional artists might say, the realism artists ain't real artists because they ain't drawing. Y'all don't draw anything. All you do is put a photo on somebody. And so, I mean, that's all the trash talk you might get. But the neo-traditional artists typically are some of the more artistic, though. They do typically lay out tattoos a little better for the body because they actually pay attention to the lines and where they're going to go. And neo-traditional just means that I'm going to break the rules, but I'm going to make it look traditional.
Okay. So where do you fit in the space? Like if you were to
I'm all
categorize
over the
yourself,
place.
so you
I'm all over the place. Yeah, I would guess I would have to call myself like a mixed style artist.
Right.
That's kind of what's becoming a newer version. A lot of times people will go and they'll get a collab. There's a collaborative tattoo between two different artists, right?
Yeah.
And that was a unique thing. Is I'm going to get this artist and this artist. I'm going to get the best of both worlds. Well, I wanted to be both. I wanted to be both artists. And I was getting not bored with just black and gray realism, but I knew that I just didn't want to do just that for the rest of my life. Like I wanted to get into, I love comic artwork.
Dude, I was about to bring up that Marvel piece you're working on. Dude, holy shit.
Yeah, I love it. Shit. And that was something that's funny that so you bring that up. It'll actually segue into my communication I have with my clients and what's different about how I handle it than probably a lot of different artists. And I have a little more of a tight-knit group of clients due to this, but I'm very selective now as to who I pick. So that client was very difficult. I actually used him as an example on a one of the groups, one of those tattoo groups on like Facebook or something. And it was an example to show them, like, don't give up on a client just because they throw the kitchen sink at you. They want everything.
Right.
They want it all, you know? And I don't even remember, because now we have such a good relationship with what I'm doing, I don't even remember what he was wanting, but it was not at all like where I was wanting to go with it.
Right.
And once I get one tattoo on him, though, it's over with. I can but I just got to get that first, that direction going. And so I pitched him that idea. It's like, look, I want to do this realistic Hulk, but I want the comic Hulk in there.
Yeah.
You know, I want to see both.
Right.
And I showed him the idea, and it took him a second, but I mean, I kind of got him into that. Once I got him tucked into that, now he's just like, do whatever the hell you want.
Well, that's what happens.
Have my arm.
But this is what's scary about that. We were talking about earlier, and we'll keep going about this, but I don't want to forget to mention this. We were talking about earlier, like, I have the best artist in the world or whatever. And then you take that piece, if you were to take that piece and pull it off of someone and then put it on paper, you would see that it's absolute trash. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, when it's on you and it's a part of you, then you seem to value it more, and then you build it up more, and then you attach the artist to it.
I think you convince yourself.
Yeah, you have to, because it's there and it's fucking permanent. You're like, well, I'm not getting rid of this.
I did that with my arm.
How many fucking fleur-de-lis with the goddamn deer head?
I never did it.
Oh my god, I'm about to say, how many have you done?
I never did.
I've seen too many.
I know. I worked in a couple shops.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I worked in a couple shops.
Dude,
I worked in a shop.
I remember that came out
in South Shreveport, and trust me, there were quite a few that would come in and want that thing. You know, geographically, you're going to run into the Browning head. Yeah, they just should have melded the two together.
Dude, holy shit!
But there's trends. That's a good subject too.
And they're regional.
Really
right?
talk about that.
Let's talk about all this. It's regional, right?
So trends are definitely a regional type thing, right? I went through a phase as a realism artist. I have my own phases of trends, right? So a traditional artist might have their own phase of trends. Well, for a good year and a half, it was the wolves and the trees. Wolves and trees. I want trees. I want the trees on my lower arm. I want the wolf up here.
Yeah.
But it was the same thing. And I blame Pinterest 100%. It is absolutely Pinterest's fault. You know, people look at things and they see things that they like, and then this thing goes viral.
It's so funny. Yeah.
It blows up.
I have a wolf on my finger. I don't have a tree, though.
And now, well, I like that wolf, though. It doesn't look like the tree wolf.
Yeah.
And then there came the morphs.
Okay.
This is for realism artists, okay? The morphs were where they just we're just going to morph everything together and make it one just soup of realism stuff. And it was like, I fell prey to that just a little bit because it was trendy, but it was wow, that looks cool though. Let me try that. And then I did it, and I have a couple of like Morphe looking things out there, but something about me kept rejecting that idea because it just, and sure enough, I don't like it at all now. I like being able to blend things and overlay things and layer things, but I don't really like the morph thing. But there's a whole trend of lions. Lions with blue eyes, because apparently lions have blue eyes in the wild. I've never seen them before, but they do. And they wear crowns all the time. They're just prancing around with their crown on. But I did a lion with a crown, and I got that whole phase of my career set precedent for me to actually put limits on what I did.
That was my next. All right, so I relate your industry to mine, and very loosely, not in no disrespect or anything like that. But so I do marketing, and so when I meet with someone, I've learned over the years. It's been like 7 years now. When I sit down, I learn when to say no. It's not a good idea, and I feel like you have to do the same thing.
Absolutely.
Because I've been on the other side of the chair, and I know when I said something dumb, and my artist was like, "No, that's probably not a good idea. Let's do this." I listened, and I feel like that's missing a lot. I know you do that, but I'm saying that it's probably missing a lot in the culture. It's like,
well, what it is, it's a maturity thing.
Yeah.
So
because
the artists
too, they're like, I take it
that allow the client to dictate.
Yeah.
Are not as mature in the industry as the ones that don't, and that's happening quicker. At least now, artists are coming up and saying no much faster than we used to.
Yeah, because we have too much entitlement now. It's a different story.
Yeah, they're different people.
Yeah.
But now what I do is, let's say I did a lion. I will not do a lion for a calendar year.
Okay.
All right, I'd shut it down. I'll wait. Now, if it's a subject that I love doing, I will do it multiple times. I'll do it differently every time, but I'll do it multiple times. But if it's a subject that I'm kind of tired of, I'm absolutely going to shut it down for a year.
What's the thing that you've hated to do the most ever? Like what piece? Like you've seen it
Well, it wasn't a piece; it was a style.
Okay, what was it?
Trash polka.
Okay, what the fuck is that?
To my own demise, right? Trash polka is. I promoted this shit when it first came out too. It started at a tattoo place. I want to say it was like South America or somewhere, but they were graphic artists. There were two graphic artists that started tattooing, and it was Buena Vista Tattoo Club was the name of the tattoo club. And I hate even saying that. Somebody's going to look it up now.
Yeah.
But they were really good.
Yeah.
Okay. So what they would do is you take the human form and you look at it as the human form, period, just naked.
Okay.
And then apply the tattoo design to the human body.
Okay.
Not to the arm, not to the forearm, not to the shoulder. They literally applied the composition of the piece to the body.
Gotcha.
It was huge, large scale.
Right.
And they blended realism, like gray shade realism, and brush stroke art or free form or abstract splatter. Like they just splatter a thing of paint on you, and then they shove in a hyper realistic skull. Okay. Right. So they put those two together, and by doing that, it was this kind of juxtaposition of two styles. Right. Very artsy fartsy, kind of just blasted, and it might go across your chest. This whole brush stroke might go across your whole chest and go into like a skull on the ribs, and it painted the body, which I thought was impressive. I thought it was really cool. So I'm like, oh man, you got to check out this style. I can do realism, and anybody can do a brushstroke across. I mean, it's a bunch of black or red or whatever. And they did predominantly use red. They would use red with it just because. Well, I had a couple people that did it, and I did a successful job, I would say maybe twice out of quite a few times that I did it, because I did not fully understand until like later on, like, hey, I got to take the whole body into consideration and the composition of that and how that works. And not many people are willing to give you the liberty to blast something across their entire torso.
Yeah.
That hurts first. Yeah. That sucks. And it's a lot more than people are willing to take on. You tell them a big tattoo, people think this.
Yeah. My favorite question is when they walk in and say, how long did that take? I'm like, are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
Like 200 hours, man. That's how fucking long it's taking.
Yeah. Well, from here to here was 6 hours. So why don't you,
Yeah.
Right. And so not many people were willing to do what it took. So what happened was it became Americanized. Trash polka, the style, that's what they called it. That's why it really took off, because it had a catchy name, and people were like, I'm trashy, I got tattoos, I'm tough. And they would adapt the style, but Americanize it. And that just means shrinking it and keeping it below a freaking sleeve.
Gotcha.
Look like crap.
Yeah.
And it just, they would put it in restraints. And you cannot restrain something that's meant to be completely free form, flowing across a body part. Now we're like, well, I want trash polka, but I want it right here. Yeah. I want it on my forearm only.
Yeah.
I don't want to go past that. I don't want to no, I don't need to come around here.
Yeah.
Well, trash polka should have go all the way around your arm. The way that it's designed was way different than what got applied here in the States.
Gotcha.
So that was I forget where we were going with that, but it
was just a matter of that was something that you your least favorite thing to do.
Oh, right.
And then I just wanted to go
because everybody asked.
Right.
Everybody asked for it. Once it came out, man, it's just like, I want that pokey trash or whatever. They always say it wrong too, that was comical. But everybody wanted it. They wanted the polka trash.
Well, then you have on the advert of that, what's your favorite like all-time favorite either piece or style?
Well, I got a couple. So I have a couple of favorite pieces for sure.
And you can name them like the ones you remember?
For the most part. Okay. For the most part. But the most popular ones is this cartoon leg sleeve I did. And I'm I don't know if you saw that or not. It's a Looney Tune leg sleeve.
See it. I didn't, but I will.
Right.
I'll check it out.
So it was, what it was, and it to this date, it's probably still one of my favorite tattoos, just because it was just a stroke of luck that I made this thing incredible. Mm-hmm. I don't say that I'm did an incredible job very often. So it is important to note that. I hate on a lot of my art. I just think that I didn't do the best job.
Right.
And this one, I just knocked out of the park. I killed it. And I started doing it. The guy wanted a Looney Tune tribute on his leg. He's like, I love Looney Tunes when I grew up. I always wanted it. And I always wanted a tattoo of some Looney Tunes, but I want all these Looney Tunes. I'm like, how the hell am I going to put 30 Looney Tunes? I don't understand. It's too many. And so I was like, I tell you what, man. And he's like, well, I can sit for whatever. And he was in the military at the time, and he could come in for 5-6 hour sessions.
Right.
So I was like, let me just do animation cells. They would do, Disney will do animation cells or different, back when they were animating, real-time animating, they would make a cell and it had hundreds and thousands of cells, and they would go through the cells and it would create movement. So I was like, well, let me do we're doing animation cells, and I'll just stick shapes on you and put all Looney Tunes in it. Mm-hmm. So we picked his favorite Looney Tunes, and then I picked the favorite scenes, like Marvin the Martian. I've got Tom and Jerry, where they're about to draw against each other, and they've got the guns up, and they're about to walk away from each other with the sunset in the background. Yeah. I've got Yosemite Sam and Porky Pig.
What made you think of that to apply that though? Because that's ingenious, right? Because you think about it, it's instead of taking just the character and trying to dump it on top of another character, you're taking scenes and blending them together. So
what I did was I didn't want to blend them together because it was going to be too difficult.
Got you. Okay.
So what I told him was, let me just put these shapes. So I did a rectangle and a square, and I fit all these shapes close together, but nothing was touching. Okay. And so I wanted it because I was like a comic book almost, right? Yeah. Okay. So we're going to stick them all together. And we got to the end of it and had no idea how I'm going to tie all this together, but it looked awesome. I had done a fantastic job on every single tattoo that I had put on this dude. He healed in 5 days, and he held color better than anybody I'd ever come across. So it was perfect for what I was doing. But then I'm left with all this negative space that's about a 1/4 inch. There's not very much room, maybe a 1/2 inch between all these pieces. And there's literally at least 15, I think, pieces on them, and they're all the good size. And I was like, well, I'll just do Porky the Pig with the That's All Folks rings, and I'll just do those behind it. And it looked like crap. I kind of laid it out, and I was like, that just looks like crap. I'm not going to do that. And then I was like, well, they're all on TV, so I'll just make it look like a film reel.
Okay.
I just filled it in with a bunch of square holes, literally like a film reel. Like did the square holes on, and it just looked perfect. And it was amazing. It looked like a stocking. It was so good that the dude had to wear pants from that point on. He could not walk into a store.
Yeah, because everyone's
he couldn't.
No,
he couldn't go anywhere. He's like, dude. He came to me in July. We were doing something, and he had sweatpants on. It's like, man, what you wearing sweatpants for? And he's like, dude, I'm not wearing shorts. Like, I can't even go in the store. Like, I can't work at Circle K. And it's like 30 minutes of talking to people oohing and on over this thing, and like it just because that was just one of those points in my life that I was like nailing all these things. I was really hyper focused on this one project. And now I have multiple projects, kind of irons in the fire, that I am able to do that stuff that I'm working on, and I'm trying to get better at getting sleeves done within a year because my sleeves are averaging around 2 years.
That's another thing. When someone says a fucking sleeve, you better mean from your wrist to the top of your arm, or over the cap.
Actually, that's kind of phasing that out completely.
Yeah,
I won't do half.
Yeah,
I won't do half sleeves.
Well, but when people say sleeves, it's always funny to me. They just have random tattoos blotched all up down their arm. They're like, I got a sleeve.
Yeah,
like, or someone's like, I'm gonna go get a sleeve done on the fucking weekend. I'm like, no, you're fucking not. There's no way. Like, if you're not tattooing your whole arm, it's not a fucking sleeve.
Yeah,
that's why I was so egotistical about doing this one. It's like, I was like, I'm making it a fucking sleeve, and it's going to be 100% covered in ink. And then I did a half sleeve over here, and I was like, well, fuck it. I'm going to do the whole thing.
Yep.
But it's so funny to me that it's so crazy to me. Like, this is a subculture. And the craziest thing about it is this is never talked about. That's why I thought this would be great to talk about. I don't know how long we can fucking talk about tattoos, but probably hours.
Man,
I
can talk way too long.
Well, no, it's fine, dude. Right. Because people need to talk about it because no one talks about it. And there's a culture that exists that if you don't have a tattoo, you don't know anything about it because you've never been in that. You've never been in that shop and sit down. You've never experienced like someone coming up to you and talking about this or
touching you, grabbing your arm like it's
my favorite thing are the stories. Like there's so. I will tell you this. There's absolutely no meaning to any of my tattoos.
I didn't think you had some deep esoteric meaning to your tribal.
Except my finger tattoo, and I just feel like the wolf thing is my spirit animal because it crossed paths my life a million times. I used to raise hybrid wolves, all that. So like, I was just like, okay, this is one thing that's symbolism in my life.
Right.
But it's so interesting how there's so many stories behind pieces of art. And I think what's awesome about what you do is that you get to like firsthand be a part of that. Like, I can only imagine how many people sit down with you, like, when you're doing, like, realistic stuff and, like, portraits. Yeah. Like, sit down with you and tell you these stories and, like...
That, I think, is the one thing that I will say, does set me apart from everyone else. I mean, not everyone else, but from a lot of different tattoo artists, is that I vet my clients to the point of, I'm going to get to know you.
Yeah.
I'm going to become a friend. We are going to enter into a relationship.
Yeah.
There is no avoiding that. I don't sit for 2 hours and then see you. You're never going to see me again. Right. I don't do a 5-hour tattoo and then I'll never see you again. We are embarking on a journey between you and I'm going to get to know you. So I started way differently. And I started off by, I typically get a list of things, and I want a list of stuff. I don't want to know what you want. I don't want a tattoo. I don't need the tattoo idea that you've got. I don't. I just, please leave that on the table. Yeah. We'll talk about that during your appointment when I'm working on what we're working on. But I need a list of all the things that you would ever feel as though you could get tattooed on you, or that are important to you, or that make you who you are, or that bring your family to mind, or that bring your childhood to mind, or give you happy thoughts, or something you want to memorialize. And all this list I go through is to help, and then you tell me where you want this. It's a chest, or an arm, or a leg. And then I get pictures of that, and then I start to go. But I first ask people, obviously the obvious question, what is it that you're wanting? What is it that you want to do? Well, that one simple question can at least get me inside of your head enough to like, okay, should I explore this further, or should I send them to someone else?
Okay.
I absolutely send people away
what's
at least 60, 70%
Okay,
of the
so
time.
what's an example of you not something you don't want? Like,
if they come to me with, I want the lion with the crown,
okay.
right?
So it's come up with, like,
it's a regurgitated
something
idea.
that's not original.
I will pick their brain a little before I let them go.
Yeah, because I'm like, you may need to bring some originality out of someone.
Yeah,
they just
absolutely.
Don't know,
Yep. And so if I pick their brain just a little bit and say, well, look, I don't do those but once a year, and I actually won't do one like this, or this. So I'm ruling out everything that you just told me. What else would you want to do? Would you want to do something else? Mm-hmm. Or are you set on this? Because if you're set on this, I'm going to give you to somebody. I'm going to make sure you find somebody that'll give it to you.
My question to that is like, so at what point, because a lot of times I'm so tied to something that I'm like, I just refuse to do that. Like, is that part of it, or is it like you just want to be 100% original? Is that what it is?
That's all that it's about.
Okay.
So I feel like every person has in them the potential to give themselves, or at least have put on themselves, something that is tied to them deeper than what they have found on the internet.
Got you.
They just know that they want a big tattoo, or they know they want something cool, and they don't know, however, beyond what they've seen. I look at it every day. I design it every day. So, I mean, I know that the sky's the limit, really. Like, I just need to pick at you a little bit and see how open you are to exploring the artistic aspect of it versus like, nope, I want this. Like, there are people out there that just
okay,
like,
that makes sense. You're like, okay, look, okay, if you that we don't mean well. You need to go.
Yeah, and that's usually how I have to phrase it. I try not to offend people,
right?
And I try to at least let people know, like, we might not be a good fit, but I can help you find your fit. I don't want you to not get a tattoo. That's the thing. I'm not like saying you're an idiot. You want stupid ideas. Like, I'm not doing that shit.
Yeah.
Like, I just tell people, like, I'm not your guy, and that's okay. Like, you totally deserve to get a tattoo and the tattoo you want, but it's just not by me. Like, I do this a whole different way. And so that was the one thing that sets me apart, as far as I create a relationship first. I first make sure that we're going to kind of have compatibility.
Yeah.
I mean, I got to be able to talk. So
put a needle in your skin. Like, we need to be able to get along.
And that goes into the demographic. For me, is very much me.
Got you.
The demographic is very much close to who I am.
Yeah.
I have found that it's over the years, it's the same type of guy, typically male.
Yeah.
I do some female art, but I typically do masculine stuff. So, I mean, I'm not going to attract a lot of female,
You're not
clients.
doing a lot of flowers and
I don't.
shit,
I just don't. I don't really find it enjoyable to do certain areas either. I'd much rather arms and legs and chest, like that, or back.
Yeah.
Arms, legs, chest, and back. Give me those all day long. I hate doing ribs. Hate doing stomach.
And that's all.
I hate doing the hip areas, central areas. I can't stand those. They're so hard to lay out. And then you're designing it for what? Only if they're naked, right? So then you have to like, well, what if they wear swimsuits? It's going to look weird hanging out.
Yeah.
So I like doing leg.
That's stuff nobody thinks about.
Yeah. And
they just see a picture of something on Pinterest and they're like, oh my God, that looks cute.
What's that going to look like with shorts on?
And then they never, that's never exposed. The whole piece is never exposed. It's always cut off.
Right.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way either.
It really is. So I look at it from a standpoint of like, what are you going to be truly comfortable with, and what would I want? Not necessarily subject matter, but what would I want from a quality standpoint? I would want the highest that I can get as far as attention to detail and have some sort of meaning. There's plenty of artists out there that's like, tattoo don't need to mean nothing.
It's so interesting too how so many people will put something on their body and they don't give a shit. Like, to just like randomly put it there.
I don't mind. So I'm on the fence about it because I have seen people that get stuff. It's strictly for the aesthetic. Right?
Yeah.
They get it because it looks good. It looks
That's
cool.
why I did it.
Absolutely.
That's why I did it. I thought this looked fucking cool. That's it.
Right. And so I'd never really have had too much of a problem with people that like it for aesthetic reasons. I've shied away and always been kind of, I'm not against new school.
Yeah.
But New School to me was very. It rides a fine line.
What's an example of New School?
New School is just very cartoony.
Oh yeah, that's right. You said that earlier.
So it's like it's just this super stretched out cartoony, and it can come across as juvenile.
I don't like that. Yeah,
which is okay when you're fucking 20.
It's very interesting though, because my wife has a piece, and I have no problem with it, but it's a Futurama piece. I believe you saw it when we were hanging out last year. I remember, but she has and it's a good looking tattoo. Mm-hmm. But I would never want nothing like that. But she gets more compliments on that tattoo when we're somewhere than I get. Like, they say anything about my tattoos.
That's why I say there's a fine line.
Yeah, it's different.
That is tying to people's nostalgia. That is tying to people's memories.
Yeah.
And so that's why I like comic. I like traditional tattoos. Yeah. I love doing things like that because, and even old cartoon, even old movie reference. Like, I love doing stuff like that because it always brings people together, and they see it and they're just like, "Oh man, that's like I remember that."
It makes sense.
Yeah.
But just thinking, like, for me, I don't have nothing to tie me to those subjects, so I'll just never thought. But every time I see, like, I'm I don't even know if I ever talked about the show, but I'm like a low-key Marvel nerd. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't read comics and shit, never was into those, but, like, I just into the movies. I like the storylines. I don't, like, I'm not on no kind of forums or nothing, but I just like this shit. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
And it's something the kids can get involved with now, and you can enjoy together, and it's not too juvenile, but also not too mature.
Right.
And all these pieces I see, and when I saw that one you did the other day, I was like, dude, that shit is badass. Like, it really is. Like,
I try to bring some sort of level of maturity, to a fun piece, though.
Right.
And
you don't want it all cartoon.
No, I don't want it.
All comic.
I mean, I don't mind. I've seen sleeves that are all comic'd out, and I think that can look really badass if it's pulled off correctly. But I also like throwing the gray shade realism into the mix, because if you do that, there is a level of seriousness to it, because it's like, it's just realistic. So it looks more serious, I guess, And so when I put the two together, you get like the fun aspect of it, but then it's like the impressive aspect of it. Even though the technical aspect of putting a comic tattoo on somebody with the colors correct is just as difficult, sometimes more, than doing a realism.
I can only imagine.
For me, the realism aspect looks more adultish. You know what I mean? Like, it looks more like you. It took higher level of skill.
It makes sense. Like, so if you would do like a comic Iron Man, or if you were doing a Tony Stark. Yeah. With the helmet off. It's a completely different look.
And they're both equally as challenging.
They're both hard, because your attention to color here has to be
spot on. Some people are way more impressed with the realistic.
Exactly, because it looks like a real image, like a real person. Yeah, that makes sense. That does make sense. Well, what do you think, what's the most, I guess, regurgitated thing you've seen over the years? Like,
well, there's probably 4 or 5 tattoos that just get done over and over again. It's always usually like a religious, I mean, the cross is probably tattooed more than anything.
Okay.
Hands down, the cross is tattooed more than anything on the planet. Yeah. It's been tattooed.
Yeah, I mean,
it speaks to so many people. I have one, like, what I mean? Like, a lot of people have that, and sometimes it's just a reminder. Sometimes they have no business putting a cross on, but they do anyway. A lot of religious things, ironically, like are done praying hands.
Okay,
without a doubt, one of the most done. Now, back to the geographic thing. Depending on where you're at, you're going to have a lot more of one specific tattoo or subject than you would, up north. It's going to be more. They may have more mountain scenes or something here. Go to Florida, you're going to have a shit ton of beach scenes.
Gotcha.
So it does play a role where you're at.
Well, I think too. I've seen a lot of trends, like from the line work stuff, like the geometric stuff.
That there was a whole trend of sacred geometry came right after Trash Polka.
Yeah, and
sacred geometry, man, I'm just going to say it. It looks like you've got a hotel carpet on your arm, or you got a shower curtain on your left arm, and
Egyptian rug or something.
I am not a fan anymore. I had a brief moment right after the Trash Polka stuff that I was like, oh yeah, sacred geometry, man. That's like where it's at, But I never cover anybody's arm in it, but I did do a whole throat.
Oh, fuck.
And it was a cover-up, and it ended up looking cool, so it sat well. That ironically was the longest piece I've ever done. It was 13 hours.
Okay.
And he sat like
The whole time.
rock.
He's gangster then.
That
Yeah,
dude's
he's gangster.
a monster.
Because
yeah.
I would sit like, I'd do like
He'll
5.
never do that again. He already told me, but he definitely was a beast.
Longest I ever sits like 5 hours, but
Yeah.
that's about all my skin wanted after that.
Yeah.
But there's like the line work, the biometric shit.
Yeah.
Like that came and go pretty quickly.
Bioorganic.
That's what I meant. Bioorganic.
Both.
Work.
They're biomech is the stuff that has the tubes and the the mechanics.
Yeah.
The gears and
Yeah,
all that
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
And then the bioorganic is more like what you got
Right.
here.
Yeah, that's what I kind of went with
That's
there.
definitely bioorganic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is like a couple of different famous artists that did that, paved the way, and that's who you go off of.
Yeah.
That's a Guy Aitchison reference.
Yeah.
Is what the elbow area of yours is very close
Okay,
to
gotcha.
what he did.
Okay.
And that's if you did it at all, you definitely referenced Guy Aitchison.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or you were just an idiot. Like he was the best.
Yeah.
Him and Aaron Kane,
And
those
then
two.
What? And then of course you have the tribal stuff. What else was some stuff like? I feel like it all trends.
The line work, and now there's a bunch of trends now. It's like the micro tattoos, the tattoos that are this big.
What's up with that?
Those are just like, I call them little pepperoni.
What's up
They're
with
gonna look
that?
like a pepperoni in 10 years. A little piece
Yeah.
of pepperoni. Well, it started in from what I could tell, like Korea, like South Korea.
Okay.
Because Koreans have porcelain, beautiful skin, like amazing
Yeah,
skin,
they don't wanna- yeah.
and they're not like out in the sun. They don't
Yeah.
worship the sun, so you have all this beautiful porcelain skin. Of course, they can do micro tattoos because it holds up,
Right.
And it actually looks good for 5 years or so.
Yeah.
Still, even in their skin, this is a deteriorating canvas that's going to eventually dissipate, and that ink's going to kind of like find itself running into itself.
Path of least resistance.
Yes, and so those had a blow up, and then it made its way to New York, and so that was like the New York thing, was to do these little, and now that's still a thing, is to do micro tattoos or patchwork tattoos where you just boom, 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 boom,
Yeah.
stick little ones all over you
Yeah.
again, and have little stickers, and that, I mean, it also comes from, you don't have to pay a lot of money. You can go get.
Yeah.
Now the micro tattoos are expensive. They'll spend 3 or 4 hours on this big.
Really?
Yeah. So you're paying $600
and then
$800 up to $3,000 if you go to New York for a tattoo that's like, no larger than like half the size of a dollar
And you
bill.
have all these facial tattoos now. Like, well, I mean, I say now. It's,
Yeah.
I'm kind of
Yeah, but
mentioning
no,
that.
it's definitely-
But it's like that originated from what? That had to originate from like Japanese in prison, right?
Well,
I
that's definitely a rapper thing. Like
that too. Yeah, but,
Yeah.
but I'm saying before that you had like the teardrop shit.
Oh
from
yeah,
prison
that was a
and-
prison thing.
Yeah,
for
yeah.
Sure.
And then
Yes.
it grew into a
But
rapper thing.
But
and then, yeah.
well, yeah, but look where that
Right,
culture
right,
gets its fashion from.
Right, exactly.
It comes from
Exactly,
jail
exactly.
because you're hard. If you went to jail, you're hard. So you have that credit.
Right.
Like I'm hard. I went to jail. Well,
So
that
face
means
tat.
that shows you went to jail.
Yeah.
So the face tat started coming from that, and then it just blew up and went crazy.
Yeah.
And all the younger generations literally start with their hands in their face. It's like
instead of
it was a
everything
complete
else.
opposite.
That's the last
right.
thing I want to do.
It was a complete opposite back in 90s and early 2000s, where you would get covered other than your hands and your face.
Yeah.
That was the no-fly zone.
Yeah.
Now it's like cover all this crap, and then you ain't got nothing
Yeah.
on your whole torso, which is funny.
Like, what's next? Like, I don't even know. Like, I feel like everything's been done. Man.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I know that the evolution of the application and the healing has really made to where the tattoos hold up well.
Dude, I know. Like, from where I started to what it is now, and just seeing it, like the process and the equipment you guys are using now, and the healing process, the way all these ways they. What's your suggestion on how you should take care of a tattoo after it's done?
Well, mine's
let's
easy.
Let's resolve this
Yeah,
argument
yeah.
because everyone has
mine's
that fucking
easy.
argument too.
Right.
Lather it in Vaseline, lather it in lotion.
Right.
What do you do?
And mine's super easy because I use there's a bunch of names for it, but Tegaderm, people have heard it, Sanoderm, Dermalize Pro. There's all these names. I buy a specific one. It's called like Clear Shield or something. I don't know, but it's just a second skin. And you leave it on for 7 days. That's all you do.
Okay.
You don't do anything else. Like you literally leave the bandage I put on
Yeah.
it for 7 days. Your body heals from the inside out. Contrary to popular belief that you need to put shit on your wound to make it heal, you don't. You just need to keep oxygen and bacteria away from it.
Yeah.
As long as you do that, it's going to heal. Your body is miraculous. Your body does things that are extremely impressive.
Yeah.
And one thing is, it heals itself.
Yeah.
We are like little Wolverines running around. We're just not as good. And if you cover this and don't let anything get to it, it's not going to get infected. Nothing's going to happen to it. All it's going to do is heal from the inside out. They peel that thing off. I just posted one on one of those tattoo groups, and the client sent me the photo. I don't know if you saw the owl that I did fairly recently, right?
So, yeah.
Well, she sent me the photo because it was the sheet, and it's literally the owl on the second skin, and it comes off like the whole like one little thin layer. And back when you were healing and you didn't have any of this stuff, you imagine a couple day or so is weeping out, ink and stuff coming off, and then little flaky pieces come off in the shower.
Yeah, I never put anything on any of mine.
Oh my God.
I left with a
dry heal is definitely a good method.
I did it. I mean, I didn't know what the best thing to do, but I just didn't feel like smothering it in like a Vaseline was good.
That's horrible.
Taking the oxygen out of it.
Yeah, that's horrible. And that's where
or the lotion. I feel like lotion can't be good for open pores because
lotion at least it soaks into the skin.
Yeah,
and it's not now a petroleum based product.
If it's not
a petroleum-based product,
petroleum
like Vaseline
or lotion that's scented. You don't want to scented fucking lotion,
and that just has alcohol in it. It causes it to burn.
Yeah.
And so the best thing that it was the easiest was to like dry heal. That's a traditional artist. They typically like a dry heal because it almost draws your lines tighter.
Okay.
Versus if I were to like just slather it, it causes that ink to stay liquid and at the surface too long, and it dissipates, and you get a hazy looking line.
Gotcha.
And it's not super sharp and clean. And if it's dry, it tends to when you cover it with Tegaderm or Sanoderm, it alleviates any variable. It sits in the almost perfect amount of plasma.
Gotcha.
Your body uses plasma to create a scab. Plasma and blood create a scab. Well, you have a whole bunch of trauma, you got a big old thick nasty scab because it's just a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
If you have a very minimal amount, which is what I typically generate with a very minimal amount of trauma, it just pushes a thin layer of plasma out. That's it. And all that thin layer of plasma does is ink and plasma. It comes to the surface, it stops, it dries, and it heals from the inside out. You peel that thing off, put the lotion on it, it's done.
Yeah.
That is my go-to method, is 7 days of covering. If it's full color, I usually have them change it at 24 hours and then go 6 days.
Gotcha.
So, but it's very minimal instructions now, and that's why I like it too, is that I put that shit on you and I just say, leave it alone.
Don't take it off.
Don't do anything.
Yeah.
You can take showers with it. It's super durable. It stretches with your skin. And so I shifted to that like 4 years ago, and I never looked back. Okay. Just like I did with the machines. I use these battery-powered pen machines now that are quiet. They don't vibrate.
I don't know anything about these. What's this?
Yeah, it's like it's half the size of this mic.
Okay.
Right? It's a pen, basically. Yeah. It's this tall. And I wrap a grip a little bigger so I don't have to squeeze so tight because I'll get tendonitis. And it's battery-powered. It lasts about 8 to 10 hours. So I can do a whole full day session, which is with me, it's about 9 hours. You don't
have a cord that you're having to do this shit with the whole time?
No foot pedal, none of that. None of it. And you can't hear it. It's silent. So I can also hear myself think.
Is that is it similar to a rotary?
Yes, it is a rotary. Yeah,
it is a rotary, but it's just don't have a cord.
Yep, rotary was actually the first machine ever.
I think Chris did most of mine with rotary, but it's cord and shit.
Yeah. And so they've had rotaries since before even the coil machine.
Okay.
The coil machines were just the most consistently used in the last, I'd say, 50, 60 years.
Gotcha.
But that was definitely a very hard-hitting, consistent machine that I can put in there and I can run a line faster than I can a rotary all day long. Mm-hmm. A coil is amazing. And the problem with them is they're temperamental. They're run off of spring steel, which wears out, and they're run with a capacitor, which can go out. They have all these variables, and then there's adjustments on them, and the contact points, they wear out because you're arcing a small little electrical current right there, so eventually that'll wear out the tip of the spring, and you have to have this bin of parts. And it's just annoying to have. Like I said, I built machines. So,
right.
I do know the benefits of them is that they hit hard as hell and they tattoo fast as can be. That's why you go get a traditional tattoo and you're going to get it done this big in 2 hours when it's going to take me 6 hours
right.
to do that area. But also I'm causing a third of the amount of trauma. A rotary is much less traumatic, so you're not going to get as much raised skin. Sometimes you'll have lines and you feel like you can kind of feel it for a little while.
Yeah.
That's just a little more trauma than what I do. And with the gray shade, there's hardly any. I mean, it's just almost like people will sit in my chair, and this is a thing. A lot of tattoo artists go, "Oh yeah, you fell asleep during your tattoo." Yeah, no, you didn't.
I fell asleep during mine. I promise
you can.
I did.
If you get tattooed by somebody that knows what they're doing, and they're not causing you a ton of trauma, you can absolutely fall asleep. I have it happen all the time. It is a thing, especially with gray shade realism. It's even easier on the body versus color or packing or something. I
think
that.
I was just going so much. I was going like every week
for
5 hours at a time. I was used to it.
You're just used to the level, and you go in there with the proper expectations.
Right, exactly, yeah.
If you go in there and you think like, oh, this ain't going to be that bad, you're going to get your ass handed to you.
The worst was in the armpit, man.
Yeah.
Armpit, and then
I steer clear of some of that area because I'm like,
the
why?
Elbow's just fucking weird, dude.
Yep.
It's just weird. It didn't really hurt, but it's like you feel it in your fucking teeth.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I don't like top of the shoulder either.
Yeah.
Up here, it felt like it's radiating through your whole body.
Yeah.
Yep.
But no, and I think it's. I just think it. I think the entire culture is amazing. It's awesome to see what it's grown into. It's also awesome to see what you're doing. Like, so you're booked out like a good bit now, huh?
Yeah, 5 months. I keep it
insane,
the same,
dude. That's so insane. Like, can you imagine? Like,
so that's by design. I got to where I was. Excuse me. I got to where I was probably a year at the most. I got to a year. I hated that. I could not stand being booked out an entire year. It was hard to like manage my life, my family. And so I tried to find a balance. I got it down to 3 months. 3 months is not too bad. And then I ended up getting too many people a couple times. I had to book to 5. Well, I've finally come to a sweet spot. It's 4 or 5 months, because what it does is it gives you proper time to prepare. I do a substantial deposit. That way it's taking some of the load off financially on the second round you get hit.
Yeah.
Because what I do is expensive. Yeah. It's the more expensive out of most of the people around. And that's because I do big, long sittings. Mm-hmm. And I'm able to sit like that because I don't have that old cumbersome machine. And like everything I do is designed to do a long, long session.
Yeah.
And so I did the 4 to 5 months. That way, we also have some time. You have time to think about what you're getting and what you're doing. We have some correspondence time. And it just is a good buffer in between so that you book it. The excitement of the booking, that kind of passes by a little bit. And you have time to think properly, and really start to like, if you change your mind, that's fine.
It makes sense. Yeah.
And so come time for booking or for actually the tattoo, then I hit up usually about a week before, and I'll get a picture of, what we're doing, the area, and I'll start discussing it in more serious. Like this is where we're going. This is what we're doing. But I also, this is funny. It's a thing that I typically do. No one sees their tattoo till the day of.
Okay.
And so like a lot of my clients that have been coming to me, they know that that's funny, because everybody they tell, they're like, "What are you getting, bro? You're going to Curt, gonna get something cool, what are you gonna get?" And they're like, "I don't know." And it's like, they're like, "What? What do you mean you don't know? It's the tattoo's huge tattoo. Obviously people know you're getting a nice, expensive, big tattoo. Obviously you should know what you're getting." And but they trust me.
Yeah.
And I think at that point they understand, like we have an understanding. I'm going to give you all the stuff that you've liked. Like you've looked at my page, you've liked this stuff. If you like all of this, that's the process they went through. You're okay with the process. Why wouldn't you be?
Well, apparently, if you like my work, and this is how you get my work. It's the only way to get it.
That's what got them those tattoos that you thought were so cool.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do. And so it also alleviates the kind of nitpicking or the micromanaging of, well, what if because if I show them the morning of, they're usually just like, oh, like it's like, that's awesome. Every now and then I have to edit, but man, the stuff we have now, I can literally edit things on the fly pretty quick, and I can make changes as long as they're not major.
Yeah.
But will also reschedule a appointment in a heartbeat.
Right.
Even though, like, I'm like, if I'm not emotionally like ready that day, like if I'm like had something going on, you know, with anything, God knows what, and like something happened, I'm going to reschedule. Well, but I leave a buffer. I only tattoo 3 days out of the week.
That's good. That's what because then you just burn out and then you don't enjoy it, and then the work shows that you don't. It's just like anything else, right? Like,
if I was pounding it out every single day,
you wouldn't.
I'd be a machine, and I'd be like, I wouldn't be giving you my best.
Right. You're not going to be passionate about it. Therefore, it's not going to be your best you can do.
Right.
And the same, people don't understand that about art, and you know that applies to a lot of things.
Yeah.
Like if you're not putting your full amount of attention to it, and what you can do, like your ability, then you're getting half of what you could have gotten if you were. So it makes sense. You're like, hey man, I'm not feeling myself today. That's not a artistic thing. It's just a look. Yeah. Next week will be better for me. Yep. Trust me.
And I created that buffer for me, so I would be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think that's also another thing that my clients appreciate is that, the day is about them. If you come, I'm only doing you that day. I don't do 2 tattoos in a day anymore.
So you're not rushing nobody out of church.
No,
like, hey man, I got
no one's
coming
coming
in 30
to
minutes.
talk to me.
Yeah, that's another thing.
Man,
dude. Fucking people
that.
show the fuck up.
Oh my God,
you have 5 people over here talking about their bullshit conversation while you're sitting there awkwardly getting your shit done.
Or somebody comes in, man, what could you do with this?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I can't do nothing right now because I'm worried about this.
Yeah.
And so when I got my own place again, I made it to where I was like, this is locked door, private studio, no one's getting in. Mm-hmm. I don't want nobody to know where it's at. Like I want it to be exclusive to the person that's getting the tattoo. This is who is important to me, is the client. It's not the clients, all of them, and everybody knows that. And the clients respect the other clients.
Yeah.
Because I've kind of groomed everybody to understand, like, you respect the fact that he's getting tattooed today. And you're not going to bother me because you know that I'm putting in my efforts to him so that you can get my efforts to you when your day comes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I like it, dude. I like it. Where can everybody find you? Instagram?
Instagram, Facebook. Pretty much, I book once a month, and I can only take one new person a month for the foreseeable future. That's pretty much what I do. I get one new person a month.
How big's your waiting list now?
Well, I don't do it.
So you don't even do a waiting list?
No, I don't
just
do
I'm taking one a month. And okay,
that's it. So it's kind of a lottery situation.
Gotcha.
So whenever I open my books every month, I open them at a specific time on the first Saturday of the month. And I usually announce that. It's usually close to the same time. And I usually announce that the Friday before, I'll announce it. And I'll say, all right, books open 8 a.m. tomorrow. And when I open them, it's gotten pretty much like a well-oiled machine. It's usually right around the amount that I need. I only booked 10 appointments.
Yeah.
So obviously it's limited already. And so I only allot one spot for a new client, which is close to being too much too, because I have so many people in the works.
Yeah.
So the first Saturday of every month, I'm able to at least try to filter out. That's why I'll have like maybe 4 or 5 people hit me up that are new clients, and I have to pick
Got you.
Of which one that I would go for.
Got you.
And but yeah, I mean Facebook and Instagram. Instagram, their whole algorithm's jacked up.
What's your name on Instagram?
Curt Young.
Curt
Young.
Yeah,
just
Instagram.
my name.
Okay,
Yep.
Gotcha.
I got on Instagram real early. So,
got you. Yeah.
So I got my
lucked
name.
out.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, look, man, it's been a blast today. Look, we could talk about this for hours. Honestly.
I know, yeah.
But I think,
told you I could talk.
No, dude, I can too, dude. I didn't realize we were opening a can of worms until we started talking about it. But it's just an impressive culture, and it's cool how it's grown. It's cool that you're such a significant part of it, and it's also cool to continue to see new trends, new things evolve. And the
Well, and that's the social media aspect has helped a lot.
Yeah,
it's really catapulted the industry into like some of the stuff. I'm impressed daily. Like I can scroll and look at my feed daily, and I'm just like, this is insane,
dude. The stuff, I mean, just like your piece of the day I see, but I see stuff like just like you said daily. I'm just holy shit. How is that on a piece of skin? Like how in the fuck do they do that?
Yeah.
Well, look, man, that's a wrap, dude. Good time today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, enjoyed it, man.